I'm done. I mean, they've ripped my heart out. I'm done. I mean, they've ripped my heart out.
Buckle up, Buttercup, and welcome back to Pittsburgh Sports Talk. I'm your host, Randy the Tank Tantlinger. Thanks for joining me here every weekend, man. I appreciate it. Hey, before we get back to talking to some more Steelers action, I want to let you know about my new book I've written that's coming out. Tank, you wrote a book? Yeah, I've actually written a couple books over the years. Wrote a book about golf called A Drinking Man with a Golf Problem. A Drinking Man with a Golf Problem. Sounds like a lot of us, doesn't it? Of course, I also wrote Leather and Blood, Pittsburgh, the Mecca boxing champions. Bet you didn't know in the 1940s, well, basically Pittsburgh had every single champ walking down the streets, baby. So excited about my new book coming out early next year. Just one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of the greatest Pittsburgh sports legends of all time that a lot of people have forgotten about. Harry Greb, Pittsburgh's first sports superstar. Harry Greb. Yeah, man. Harry Greb represented everything that made Pittsburgh, well, what it is. Tough, baby. Over 300 fights, and the man only lost about 17. Yeah, that's Harry Greb. So I'll let you know more about the book coming out and where you can get it on my website and Amazon and all that other stuff. All right, back to your Pittsburgh Steelers, and as the Rocky Blyer said, you've ripped my heart out. I'm done with you, baby. It's kind of like a cheating girlfriend after like the 20th time or 21st time, wherever your threshold is. You're done. You've broken my heart, baby. I'm done with you. That's how Rocky felt on Monday. I'm sure that's how a lot of us felt. Well, I was in the South Side on Tuesday for Coach Tomlin's press conference. Well, I was at Coach Tomlin's press conference on Tuesday, and to be quite honest with you, a lot of us writers and journalists in the room just had no idea what kind of mood Coach Tomlin was going to be in. Would he be angry? Would he be disappointed? He was honest, is what he was, and I got to hand that to him. I do like Coach Tomlin as a person. I think he's a good guy. He's very active in his community, and he's just a good guy. We'll get into his coaching abilities later. So I had two questions for Coach this week. The first was, well, regarding this hapless defense.
Unsuccessful in this business, but not a lot of time for that. We understand that as well. Sunday's coming, man. We're excited about an opportunity to compete and get this negative taste out of our mouths, as I'm sure New England is. You know, they're coming off of a bitter, disappointing game. So it's going to be high stakes, obviously. It's going to be a big-time atmosphere. Excited about it and look forward, more importantly, to this week's preparation for the opportunity. A lot of work to be done. Questions?
Coach, you've always talked about this time of year you need to be a team on the rise. You're obviously a team on the decline with the 3 losses. You're suggesting there has to be changes made to address the problems. Defensively, you're not getting turnovers, you're giving up leads. Is this a schematic problem or is it a personnel problem the way you're looking at it?
You know, it's all of us. You know, you don't fail and then, you know, conveniently pinpoint one particular area. This is a very complex game because it's a complex game, because of the number of people involved. And whenever you're talking about particularly consistent failures like we've had in recent weeks, it's usually a multitude of things. We better look at the schematics. We better look at who we're asking to do what, and we better look at the detail in which they're doing it. And so it's all of the above, and that's our intentions. We're open to change. We're going to make discussions regarding change, but I don't want you to lead you to believe that these changes are going to be dramatic and maybe even noticeable to the naked eye. But in our world, very much necessary and very much significant. Oftentimes, you know, you make very subtle changes and they have very significant outcomes. And so we're going to look at all the things that I mentioned.
All right, so Rocky Blyer was the one that brought it up first this week when he said Keith Butler has to go. I agree. I never got the idea of why we got rid of one of the greatest defensive minds ever in Dick LeBeau, who's down with Tennessee now. Dick LeBeau, one of the greatest defensive minds of all time. Blitzburgh, baby. Blitzburgh, baby. Blitzburgh. Well, Coach Tomlin let go of Coach LeBeau because it was his time for his buddy, Keith Butler, to, well, become a defensive coordinator. Hapless move on his part. I mean, nepotism's all fine and good when you're selling hot dogs. Son, I want you to sell the hot dogs in the corner store for me. Gee, Dad, thanks. Don't screw it up. If somebody asks for relish, give them relish. Don't give them mustard. Gee, Dad, thanks. It's a lot of responsibility for a 4-year-old, but I know you can handle it. Gee, Dad, thanks. And the kid burns down the hot dog stand anyway, but it's not the same as being promoted to head defensive coordinator for one of only 32 teams in the NFL. You don't replace Dick LeBeau with Keith Butler, an unknown project. I mean, at this point, this is Butler's defense. Clear and whole. Earlier in the year we heard, well, is it Tomlin's? Is it Butler's? Is it Tomlin's? Is it a combination? Well, whoever the hell it belongs to, first things first. Coming into training camp in Latrobe, the whole offseason, the talk was about, man, we need some inside linebackers. Now that Ryan Shazier has been injured and will never play again, we need some inside linebackers because we all recognize that Vince Williams on a good day is a B- inside linebacker. By the way, they gave him a big contract and he's still a B-, C+ linebacker. So the Steelers are Keith Butler, mastermind of his defense that's trying to get to a Super Bowl, said, give me John Bostic. I need this man. He's our man. This is what I need. Go out to Indianapolis, the Colts, with the 33rd ranked. There's only 32 teams, Tank. I know, but they were so bad they were 33. Go get me the worst defense in the league and their starting quarter linebacker, John Bostic. That's how I think we can get to the Super Bowl. Go get me the worst linebacker in the league, in theory. Have you watched the Rock'em Sock'em Robot? John Bostic, you remember Rock'em Sock'em Robots from the 70s? Stiff plastic who can't move. That's John Bostic. When he does make a tackle, it's because, well, basically the ball carrier ran into him. He can't get off blocks. He can't find the ball. But this is who Keith Butler decided to bring in. So Rocky Blyer's right about Butler. Unbelievably, with potentially the very best front three in the league with Tuitt, Hargrave, and Cam Hayward. Yes, they're leading the league again in sacks. TJ Watt. But Keith Butler didn't bring in TJ Watt and Hargrave and Tuitt and Cam Hayward. No, that's Kevin Colbert and the coaching scouting staff. That's one of the best in the league because they find you TJ Watt. TJ, who the hell what? Out of Wisconsin. Never heard of him. Heard of him now, haven't you? Or how about Colbert going out and getting, did you see that catch that Juju Schuster-Smith made in the end zone? Lynn Swann, on his best day, has never made a catch like that. That was Kevin Colbert and the scouts that went and got Juju, Watt, Hargrave. Not Keith Butler. What the hell is Keith Butler doing? You know, for the first part of this season, it looked like the Keystone Cops back there in the secondary. Nobody knew where they were supposed to be. Nobody was where they were supposed to be. They were missing calls all the time. You tied the Cleveland Clowns in game 1. And I don't want to hear that they're a team on the rise. Both their quarterbacks barely threw over 100 yards when we played them this year. Why in the hell did you tie them the first game? So when I asked Tomlin, Coach, is it personnel or is it the scheme you're playing? It's both. Look, John Bostic is happy to be playing inside linebacker for the Steelers this year and getting paid to do it. Just like when Keith Butler decided when Ryan Shazier got hurt last year that the answer to get to the Super Bowl to stop Leonard Fournette and the Jaguars was to call down Florida and get a 170-pound inside linebacker named Sean Spence. Sean who? Yeah, you remember, the guy they brought in to replace Ryan Shazier, Sean Spence. He's not even in the league this year. But that's who Keith Butler went and got. Go back and watch the tape from every game Spence played in. It's horrible. Blake Bortles and the Jaguars came here and beat us. Most of the running plays with Fournette were right at Sean Spence. One of his touchdowns, he blew Spence over and ran him over to get in the end zone. That's Kevin Butler who did that for you. Now, the same team that is in the top of the league with sacks can't get any turnovers, interceptions. Guess what? If you're leading, listen to me, if you're pressuring the quarterback and getting sacks and getting pressure on him, you should be getting INTs. That's the way that works. They go hand in hand. But what you have is talent up front. Watt, Hargrave, Tuitt, Hayward delivering on their talent, not the scheme of Butler's defense. The scheme is applicable in the defensive backfield. And that's where it's failing because it's Butler's defense. Talent is carrying them up front. Butler's scheme is killing them in the secondary. Hence, the Raiders, 2-10, going on an epic downfield march at the end of the game. Hence, Denver. It lays on Keith Butler. Rocky Bleier is right. Why in the hell did you get rid of Dick LeBeau? Because Keithy Butler's my friend, and I want him to be a coach in the NFL. Yeah, well, as Jerry Glanville used to say, NFL stands for not for long. And that's where Keith Butler's heading. And guess what? Mike Tomlin is going to live and suffer by the Butler decision. Hey, you're listening to Pittsburgh Sports Talk. I'm Tank Tantlinger. Again, I was down on the South Side this week at Coach Tomlin's press conference. A little bit uncomfortable in there. But anyway, kickers. Kickers. If you've ever played football or you've watched any movie outside of Gus the Kicking Mule, you know kickers are a little bit odd.
How long has this been in the back of your mind? That did you go into before last week's game that if something else materialized that maybe you're going to go in this direction? Because most of the year
I came to this decision and we came to this decision, in the last 24 hours or so. and as simple as that.
When you have tryouts for kickers, you judge them based on what they're doing at that tryout? You have to have the past, what they've done in the past?
In part, yes. Part of who you bring in is based on what they've done in the past.
Isn't it overreacting, though? I mean, with Boswell, I mean, it was a horrible kick, but it was his plant foot. Was it his shoe or was it his mechanics?
You know, I'm not getting into the minutia. I'm just getting into the fact that we need the ball to go through the uprights. He needs the ball to go through the uprights, and it hadn't been consistently. And I've outlined that for you guys in great detail, and I've told you our intentions, and really that's all I have to say on the matter.
Other than Gus the Kicking Mule from the Disney movies in the early 70s, most people know that you don't mess with a kicker's psyche. You let him alone. They live in their own little world, and you don't intrude on that world. If they stink, you get rid of them. Then they go someplace else and they get good again. Need I remind you that Chris Boswell was 35 of 38 last season. In 2016, he was 21 of 25. In 2015, he was 29 of 32. He's good. He's real good. In 2018, after 13 games, he's made 10 of 16. Something's not right. We heard he had hurt himself earlier in the year. So Boswell has the opportunity to win the game in Oakland for your Steelers. His plant foot, that was his left foot, the one that slid, hits that crappy turf in Oakland. His cleats do not catch, and he pulls a Charlie Brown. We lose. What? You got to ask yourself, why is it even coming down to Boswell? You got the best offense in the league, and you're playing the worst defense in the Raiders this year. I don't know, a little off track there. Not. So Mike Tomlin, in all his genius this week, decides, well, my kicker's having a bad year, and, really it was the Oakland turf and bad cleats, not Boswell's mechanics. So I'm going to mess with his head and bring in other kickers.